Hey everybody, this is Farside for HUSNG.com. It's my first video. I've been playing poker for about 6 years now. Been playing heads up for a little more than 2 years. And my normal games are 60, 100, and $200 heads up. A lot of turbos and hypers. Probably half hypers and half turbos. This video is going to be all turbos. And the first couple are going to be against more recreational players, and the second half is going to be more against regulars. So I think for my video I thought it'd be good to give a taste of each type of player. And one thing I'm big on, I coach quite a bit, and one thing I always stress is player profiling. So I kind of like to put people in different profiles and saying, I just don't like to say fish and regular. I have 4 or 5 categories, so what we'll do is we'll start out playing this guy and see how he reacts, and go from there. I mean, I generally play, it's pretty standard loose aggressive style and heads up. I guess if you would say I modeled my game after a couple of people, one being Merce a lot. I kind of started with his videos when I started playing heads up. So I think you'll see a lot of similarities there. And yeah, so anyway, let's get started and see how it goes. This guy, Tiger Beast 77, I don't know anything about his game. I think I've maybe played him a couple times. And just so you know, these are all $100 games on Stars. So first hand, good old min raise. I see some people, some regulars raise a 75 BB to either 50 or 55 or 60. I just go for the min raise. Mostly it's just a practical thing where, when you're playing, I think I normally play like 4, 5, 6 tables, so I think it's just more convenient. I think there are arguments for making it bigger when you're deeper in position, but just for the sake of expediency, I like to make it just a min raise. Anyway, the board texture is 10-8-7. I think if there's probably any board that you're going to check on to put a part of your checking range, I think this would be it. In some ways it's a good board texture to bet, because if he doesn't have a heart, then he's just going to fold. But there's so many hands. I mean, any heart and any card between like 6 and Jack is going to continue, and that's probably, I'm sure like a lot of the people's flatting range are going to be these middling connecting type hands. So I don't think this is going to be a profitable play. If you think about it mathematically, we got to bet 40 into 80, so it has to work 1/3 of the time, and I'm just not sure that that's going to be the case here. Of course, you can't look at it that simply. I mean, it's you want to think about setting up future barrels sometimes on some boards and whatever, but on this board I don't think there's going to be a ton of great opportunities for me to barrel. Now he checks. I kind of would have expected him to bet like hands with like no showdown value. So I think we could bet here, just bet like 40, and maybe for a little bit of protection, maybe even for a little bit of value if he's the kind of player who's going to like check call with like Queen 6 with a heart or something like that. But decided to check it down. So I think just right off the bat, this hand kind of tells us that what type of player he's going to be. Obviously, most players are going to bet that turn with the open and straight flush draw, not having any showdown value, but he decided to check. So in terms of what that means for me, I think that in retrospect, I would be value betting that turn, just because if he's going to be check calling those draws instead of betting them himself, then that tells us something. Also, if he bets the turn, then I'm going to be interested to see what his range is there, because if he's not betting open and straight flush draw, then it's kind of like, what is he betting? When it's 75 BB deep, I have a pretty tight isolation range here. Raise at 4x, and it's basically all hands that play well. Probably like Jack 10 plus, 8-9 suited plus, something like that, pocket pairs, and then usually with like crappy aces, like probably all the way up to ace 8 offsuit, maybe even ace 9, I'm probably just checking. And then I usually isolate most suited aces here too. He calls. I think it's a good board to bet. Usually I bet 100 out of position, or 2/3 pot out of position. But I think here there's a lot of value to be had, whether he has like a diamond draw or 4-5 or worse 10x. I don't think he ever really has an ace. So, you know, usually I start off raising close to 100%, but I think, you know, deuce 4 is fine to fold. If it really turns out that like he's just not flatting enough at all and not 3-betting enough, then that probably would turn into a min raise for me. But decided just to lead here. I could go either way, check call or lead. But based on that hand where he checked his open end straight flush draw, I think he's gonna be the type of guy that's gonna like, he's not gonna be betting his entire range here. I think if somebody's betting their entire range, then it's probably better just to check. This would be a good board to lead too, but since I just did it, I would have liked it if I like had a hand here a little bit better, like a queen 4 or something. But and he bets 4x pot in the turn, so we'll just give it up. Again, this is a queen 9-5 one suit, not a great texture, but he does seem pretty passive, and you know, with the very bottom of our range, then it's probably good to bet there. Get a pretty good turn card. I think it's a pretty mandatory bet. Give him to fold his ace highs or his 5x or like his king x that he floated with. And decided to check there. So I don't really love that. I mean, the board does connect with a lot of his range. If he's got his, you know, his jack 9s, jack 10, 8-10, stuff like that. But at the same time, I still think there's, you know, with our hand having no value, I think a bet there would have been best. And now that I gave up on the turn, I'm just giving up on the river. Again, decided to lead. I mean, leading isn't a huge part of my game, but just based on this guy's player profile, I'm kind of trying to take advantage of that. Since he's folded so much, I'm going to try to like slant my range in the future towards air, and then just checking my value hands since he's folding so much. I probably would have barreled like any turn above a 7 here, but I mean, this is obviously not a great card. I guess we can get him to fold king high in the turn, but he might not even fold that, so. He checks the river, but he's so passive that like I feel like he can have an ace here. So while I would normally try to get somebody off king high or something like that just by betting like 100 or 120, I'm not sure that's the greatest plan there, and I don't think he's ever folding a pair on the river. So I did decide to bet a little bit bigger out of position here, which I said is my standard, and he min raises. No idea what to make with this, but he's been limping so much that it's pretty clear that he can't have an ace in his range at this point and then just be trying to play really tricky. So I tend to believe him there and give it up. I know it looks a little weak, but so he's not folding too many continuation bets, so I'm going to be slanting more of my flop range to thin value. So I probably would be betting like even like ace 3 on this flop, while some majority of the time I'd be checking that back as a standard. But turn pairing the queen, I think it's better to take a free card. And again, it's a card that we could bet here on the river, but I'm not sure how much of a believable story we're telling, and I don't think he's folding a pair at this point. I think we could get him to fold ace high, and I might start doing that in the future if he shows up with junk there. And so, based on the fact that he's making these weird bets when, like these huge over bets when we're checking the turn, I would do it like if I had a hand like an ace 5 here that I checked, I definitely would just check the turn there again to try to induce him to do something similar when I have a stronger hand. So he's limped. I think this is the third time I've isolated his limp, and he's called. This is the third time. One time he just check fold down the king 10, and then the second time he raised an ace 4-2 flop. I decided just to check this just because like there's no bad turn card for me really. Since I have the king of diamonds. If I had like 2 red kings here, I probably would check. Or I'm sorry, I probably would bet. But given here, I just wanted to kind of give him some rope. Where it's not exactly a way ahead, way behind situation, but you know, it's kind of close. On the turn, I decided to bet big. I kind of think that he's not going to fold a diamond at this point, so we can get a lot of value from different hands, and, you know, any pair, any diamond, that sort of thing. Again, I decided to bet. I said I was going to check my value hands, but I think this is kind of like similar to air, where I just kind of want to like take it down, so I don't hate betting there. And then I'm just trying to check down here. You can see he called with 10-6 and then just like didn't make a move at the board, so I mean that makes the lead like so much better if he's not going to be like floating and contesting pots. So wouldn't hate a check here. Obviously betting's fine, but I did say I was going to expand my flop value range here, because he's just not folding. So I could bet the turn as well, but I think as a standard against a more recreational player, I think checking and then like value betting some rivers is probably the best play. And now that the spade came in, we'll just call his weak showdown bet, blocking bet. I don't think I should be folding suited cards on the button to him, just with how easy it is to get to showdown with him. So with any suited hands, I think I should be raising, so I think there's a little bit of a mistake there. Wouldn't mind seeing a lead here either. Guess we have the best hand. Again, if there is a board you're going to check, I think this is probably a good one. I don't think we get many folds on that. I would have folded to a regular sized bet, but I think obviously we have to call there. In terms of if we should raise this river, like I think if we did, we should just make it like really small, like 125. It's pretty disastrous if we raise and then he opens up the betting again. But I don't think that's likely with this guy. I think even if he had a hand like in 8-9, or even like a hand as strong as like Queen-9 or Ace-9 or something like that, I just think he'd probably call anyway. So I think raising there would actually like be okay. Against some more unpredictable players, I probably wouldn't do that. So he hasn't bet a flop yet, I don't think, when he's limped, so I think it's certainly probable, or I should say possible, that he has a king or a jack, but he's also shown that like he just floats with air and then doesn't bet, so I think like we're protected there in a sense. So we're not getting some awesome turn barrel opportunities here. I'd be betting any heart, probably bet any 7, and then a 5 or a deuce I'd probably check. So he finally decides to bet a flop. I'm going to just let it go. This is really for value here with king high, with how little he's been folding the flop. I like to make it 3x out of position once you get to big blind 30. Like I said, I make it 4x at 75 BB. At 30 BB here, I think it's probably best to make it a little bit smaller, just because stack to pot ratio, it's a lot less, and yeah. And again, I also start making my flop bets a little bit smaller out of position, as opposed to before I was making like 3/5 or 2/3, just because in relation to a stack, it's gonna have the same amount of fold equity in my opinion. I actually think we probably have the best hand here a lot of times, so I think we could barrel and get him to like fold his like total air balls and gut shots and 10-9s and stuff like that. But I thought with how passive he was, I thought like it was actually reasonable that we get a showdown here. I mean, that's not too often you say that. And can't fold for 100. So this is an interesting spot. I was basically going to go for 3 barrels if the board came off reasonably well. But again, I think to play exploitively against this guy is probably the best bet, and just check this turn and get a value bet in the river, or pick off his bluffs that he floated with. you know, against a regular player, against a more astute player, you definitely want to be betting these turns for value to balance the time, because you're going to be betting this king every time. So if you're going to bet the king as a bluff, you have to bet it for value. Not the greatest river card, and I think usually when you see this, when people bet 3x pot here on the river, it's almost always the nuts. So there's not really much of a decision to be made there. You can see this guy's checking down top pair and a limped pot, so I think that confirms my read from earlier. With a little less than 14 blinds out of position with an ace, it's just going to be a ship. I don't expect this guy to really have like any trapping range. I mean, he might have a range that, like, he certainly has a limp calling range, like king 10, and like, I don't know, sometimes people play like pocket threes like this or something, but it's definitely going to be plus EV to raise there. And normally why I would like integrate limping in my game at these stack sizes, I think the fact this guy is just so passive that it's better just to raise. It's almost guaranteed that this guy is going to fold when he bets 1/4 pot here, so just bump it up. I don't want to make it too small to like, so he calls with like Jack 8 or something like that. I think you just get a ton of folds there generally. Probably the best hand here. I don't think he's going to check at 9. I know he checked top pair before, but I think when the turn comes, if he had made trips, I think with the 3 diamonds out there, he almost certainly would bet. I guess it's possible he makes this bet with like an ace 8. A very likely hand he has is a 2, I think. I wouldn't hate calling here. You know, getting 1.7 to 1, have to be right. A little bit more than a third of the time, 37.5%. You know, I think I could go either way there. Would like to see a limp with the 10-5 here instead of fold in. Like I said, I was looking for a spot where I would check and then he does that weird overbet in the turn, but with the 3 hearts out there, I think I'll just bet myself. And he raises, which is a little scary, honestly. Because, you know, obviously you would normally say, oh, a guy can never have a flush draw if he checks the flop, but I think this guy certainly can. Also, possibly just has like top set or something like that. So my plan was just to call, and I think based on what I know about this guy is that he'd probably just give up his like bluffs if he did decide to do something with like an ace of hearts here. And so he did raise second pair in the turn there, which is a little surprising based on how he's been playing. Again, just checking these middling flops. Against a regular, I'm going to be betting these sometimes, just because I don't want them to know that every time I check that, you know, I have air and that type of thing. Almost certainly have the best hand here on the river, but decided to check it down. Not sure how much value is to be had there. I definitely like the check again here. He's made some weird turn plays. And then I just bet big on the river, hoping he'll call me with like ace high or something. And call me with jack high, so that worked out. Not a great board again, not a great texture, but with 9 high, and he has started folding a couple times, so. We turn an open-ender. I decided to stick the free card. Obviously we get him to fold a 5 or ace high on this turn, but everything else is like never ever folding. It crossed my mind to ship this river, but I just don't think he's gonna fold like a queen X. I think I do get him to fold jack X, which I think is a large part of his range, like jack 9, jack 8, king jack. But I decided this guy was just so bad that it was probably best just to give it up here. I like a lead on this turn. You know, we might have the best hand some portion of the time, but I'm just like taking it down there. Whoa, okay. So he bets pot. We have to be right a third of the time. I guess what I was thinking here is I was curious like what his range was when he does these check downs and then bet really big on the turn of the river, so I'm not really sure this is like the greatest spot for it though, because he could be bluffing with queen high, so I don't really like this call at all. I mean, nobody's a bigger fan of hero calls than I am, but I'm not sure that was the best spot. He limps again, and we shove our 13 blinds. I don't see there being like any other way to play it. So I raised, and I would have kind of begrudgingly called a ship, just with how passive the guy's been. He min re-raises. I don't think it's worth shoving. I mean, some guys, you can ship here and just print money when they're 3-betting like 40%. They're doing this min 3-bet thing like really with a very high frequency. But I don't see that as being a great option here. So he checks. It's an interesting spot. The thing I'm kind of thinking about is that if he has an ace, then I'm never going to get away from it anyway. So I think it's pretty likely, like, I mean, it's possible he has top set or like ace king or something he's playing, but I think it's really likely too that he has a hand like kings, queens, jacks, tens, maybe a hand like 10-9 or something like that. So I like betting and then I hit my gin card in the turn. Just bet small again. Getting a call with like king queen or something. I mean, we're just really throwing out our fishing pole here. And he did have pocket tens. So that was game number 1.